Hello, everybody. This is Mike from the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. My wife Beth and I would like to invite you to join us each week as we examine life at the intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. Through 28 years of ministry, 26 years of marriage, 23 years of professional careers, and 21 years of being parents to 3 kids, our fun and honest discussions promise to have something for everyone. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody. This is Mike.
And Beth.
And we are back once again with the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. Beth, I got to ask you a question right off the bat. Did you have the podcast on your to-do list today?
Yes.
So can you check it off now?
I can, and I feel good about it. And if I didn't have it on my to-do list, I would write it on there just so I could check it off because it feels good.
Tell everybody about your love of to-do list.
Okay, it's not a love. I didn't know this was coming, but okay, it's not a love, it's a necessity. So, as we discussed one time...
That's how you describe me.
Yeah, that too. Not just kidding. But as we discussed one time, I am neurodivergent, also known as I have a diagnosis of ADHD, which as I have aged and been under tremendous amounts of stress and have to keep up with 5 people's, schedules, plus my job, plus my home. It's just a lot. So the only way, literally the only way I can function is with a very organized calendar and a to-do list. And what I mean by that is, basically for ADHD people, time is relative to us. Like we have a different concept of time. That's why we tend to be right on time or late because we try to cram so much into time and we don't have a good ability sometimes, I think, to really project how much time something will take, which has been challenging for me at work. I've learned a lot over the years, but I would sometimes be like, oh yeah, I can get that project done in 3 days because I'm thinking about everything going right in life, right? And that doesn't happen.
I feel like your ADHD has now led you off the topic of what I asked for.
Back to the to-do list. Sorry, we'll go back to my other time relativity at some other time. But the to-do list, I might turn my head and forget that you just told me something. So basically, if you're like, hey, Beth, tomorrow I need you to call the doctor and ask them about, so-and-so's checkup. I'll be like, I have to write that on my to-do list right now. If I do not do that, I will either obsess about it, which then means I will be forgetting all the other stuff I need to be focusing on and thinking about because I'll be afraid of forgetting it. Or I will it will fall out of my head and I will forget it. So I have a very structured to-do list where I write down all sorts of things, from like big things that are due to small things to recurring things. So like that's how I remember to like give the dogs and cats their flea and tick medicine or what. But that's also how I remember that I need to schedule my next shingles vaccine, or that's how I know that I need to respond to somebody's email, because otherwise I'm inundated with emails and calls and information and I can't keep it all in my head.
Your to-do list causes you so much stress. Mm-hmm. You would think that if you had something like that, you would be calm and confident. Like, you know what, it's on here. I'm going to get it knocked off. What I don't, I'll just move on to the next day. I want to knock it off the next day or whenever it's due. But you obsessively look at this to-do list and it causes you so much stress. And how many times have I said to you, your to-do list is not my to-do list?
Well, okay, I know where you're going with this. This was a first time that I made a to-do list for you. Okay?
No, I'm just, let's just bring this, hold on a second. Wednesday night, you were kind of stressing because you had a lot going on.
I did.
Week. You had a lot to do. And being the good husband that I am, I said, honey, let me do some of it.
Right.
Just tell me what you want me to do and I'll do it. Yesterday, you said, all right, how do you want me to give this to you? Do you want me to text it? Do you want me to email it? We use an app in our family literally called To Do.
Yes.
And it originated because
of a grocery list.
As with most families, somebody will open the fridge and be like, why don't we have any milk?
Yeah, where's the peanut butter?
Yes. And I'll say, well, nobody told me. And I do all the grocery shopping in the family. Every week, I do the grocery shopping. So we found this app. It's called To Do. We put it on all the kids' phones, everyone in our family's phones, and said, when you use something and you run out or you see it's going low, just add it to that list. And then it populates on all of our phones, on all the apps. It's all synchronized. And then I know what to buy.
Which in theory would work if they didn't just put like the empty Pop-Tart box back in the cabinet and never put it on the to-do list.
It works in theory.
Yeah.
So I said, look, we have the to-do app. Just put my list on there.
Yeah.
So last night you said, all right, I got you. It's all ready. You're to go. You have your to-do list. I was like, all right, that's fine.
Gosh.
So this morning I opened it up. I was like, all right, let me see what I need to knock out today. I started scrolling. Do you know how many things you put on my to-do list today?
10.
Higher.
12?
Higher.
No.
You put 16 things on my to-do list today.
But it was really like mini to-dos, like that I kind of broke them out into smaller chunks. I chunked it out so it'd be easier for you to check them off.
So the woman who writes dissertations for text all of a sudden decides to break up her to-do list. No, that's not at all. None of them correlated with one another.
Okay. Well, imagine though, if I had gave 16 to you, imagine how many are on my phone. I can't even begin to count.
I know, and that's why I think to-do lists are evil.
Okay.
I don't think they're a necessity.
Do you know how many bills wouldn't get paid? How many plants might die? How many animals would have fleas?
You need it on your to-do list to water your plants.
Well, no, but I do to remember sometimes to give the cats and the dogs their medicine.
How hard is it to remember the first day of the month?
I'm not, but okay, well then why am I always the one that's responsible for nagging everybody about doing the medicine? Because
I think you have that on your to-do list. I think you have on your to-do list, nag family.
No, what I'm saying is maybe if people just stepped up and took responsibility and did it, it wouldn't have to go on the to-do list. But right now, I'm carrying the mental weight.
No,
the mental
carrying
load.
The to-do list.
But it's the mental load for all these things, for all the people, for all the stuff that has to be remembered. Like, oh, when did the kids last have their, last annual checkup? Because they don't let you schedule that a year in advance. You have to remember to go back like 4 months and like schedule it. Like there's just stuff that if I don't have something in there, I'm going to miss it. Especially things that require me to go further out in time. Like a month from now. I have to put it on the to-do list now to remind me to do it next month.
Well, I have a friend. We'll call him Ross. We were talking today about this to-do list. I was letting him know. And he said, do you think I do a to-do list? I said, Ross, your life is copy-paste. Like, if you need a to-do list, all you have to write on it is, what did I do yesterday? Yes. What did I do yesterday? Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
And
today.
what he says, he writes down what he did each moment of the day, and then he just puts every day it on the to-do list, and he just checks it off.
He is the biggest creature of habit I've ever met. So, but we decided this would be a good poll question. So that's going to be our poll question for this week.
Ooh.
It's going to be, do you follow a to-do list? Daily, weekly, or never?
Right.
I think I should give, because some people maybe do a week.
Yeah, they may do one.
Some people may do a daily.
Right.
Or never. Like I am a never.
I have daily.
I tried it one time several years ago, and I found it was stressing me out. Now I just kind of go through life.
But that's why you have me, because then I can supply
now
one.
You just stress me out.
No, but some stress is good in your life. It keeps you motivated. And that's what I'm here for.
Now there's
a lot of stress.
We're doing this right now. So you're getting ready to head off to
book club.
And what is the book of this?
Onyx Storm.
Okay.
It is about dragons. It is and it was so fun because when we were on vacation, I overheard these two young girls. They're a little older than our kids because they were out of college, but I heard them saying like, well, I think Violet's signet something. And I turned around and I was like, oh, are you talking about, Onyx Storm? And they're like, oh, we're talking about that series, but we're not to that book yet. And I was like, well, good, no spoilers, because I don't want to accidentally hear spoilers, because at that point I had not finished the book. But I'll read everything. I think I've talked on here, maybe not here, but to other people about, I love like World War II, nonfiction and fiction. I love all sorts of fiction. I even like children and teenage literature, but probably my favorite of all time is like this fantasy genre or this dystopian future. Like I love those types of books. And so this one isn't the dystopian future, but it is, you have dragons and people bond with the dragons. And when you do, you get like certain magical powers. It's really cool.
So is this third book, did it complete the trilogy, or is there going to be?
There's going to be 2 more. This was one of the. Well, this was one of
Harry
those.
Potter?
Well, this is one. Now I do have. I don't want to. I'm not going to spoil this for everybody, and this will probably make people not listen to the podcast. But I felt like this book was dragging because I think it's suffering from what.
Because of too many dragons?
No, but I think what happens is an author will set out and be like, I'm going to write a trilogy. And then when the first and second books are crazy good, they're like, their publisher, whomever, they're like, oh, this is a cash cow. And all of a sudden the trilogy becomes a 5 or 6 or 7 book series, which then I think introduces people are still going to buy it. People are still going to want the series because sometimes the books bounce back and you want to know what happens to these characters you've invested in. But the problem is, if it was meant in their head to be a trilogy and they're really just stretching it out to make it 5, I feel like sometimes you end up with a lot of filler space or sometimes plot lines that maybe don't connect or don't go anywhere. And so
it's no different than TV shows do the same thing.
Yes, they don't end, it's like, we've talked about this before, like knowing when to end. Like, do you end on that high note when it is amazing and it's like you went out on top?
That's why I brought up divorce to you so much recently. I feel like we're at our peak. Let's just go out on top, Beth.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, I brought up, again, to my friend who I'll call Ross. I told him you had book club tonight. Because I was like, hey, I said, Beth's not going to be able to play BGA with us tonight. She's going to be at book club. And he said, how often does that book club meet? I said, once a month.
And I'm actually...
I said, once a month? I said, yeah. He goes, they have to read a book a month? Like, it was like,
do you know how many books I read a year? Oh my goodness.
And I was like, yeah, man, they gotta read a book a month. And he was like, yeah.
And this book's long. It's like Harry Potter length.
Well, and he asked me, he's like, are they at least like 100 or 200 pages?
Oh,
I was like, no.
I said,
I think they're like 500 to 700.
Yeah, they're really.
And Ross was like, no way.
Yeah.
Like, he could not believe that y'all read a book a month.
Well, Ross is missing out on so much. Yes.
I don't know.
Like imagination, going to do and being able to escape the chaos and crazy
and
that living in.
I used to read. I kind of just got burned out on reading.
I don't know that that's a thing, but okay. I've always been a reader. I think that's one reason my eyesight's so terrible. I was the kid who would go to the library and check out like 14 books or whatever the max is, and just devour the books. I love to read. I would sometimes go out to eat with my parents and they'd be like, talk to us. And I'd be like, I'm sorry, I'm reading.
No, I'm just proud of you for actually reading and not audiobook listening.
Well, okay.
We're not going to dig that. We're not going to
we don't need to do that.
We're not going to resurrect those bones. But
people go back and listen to that podcast.
Very proud of you for actually reading this book.
Well,
so
thanks.
this counts as a book this year.
Just as an aside, I wasn't looking for your approval or anything in that, but I'm glad you like it.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Speaking of approval, we're still hearing from folks that are discovering the podcast. Like our friend Amy out in Colorado messaged me and said, "I'm loving the podcast."
Yeah,
she just found it.
I miss Amy. She's another creative genius.
She is.
She and I. We did. We co-directed, co-wrote, co-acted, a lot of co's in here. A world class performance that I just feel like was probably life-changing for everyone involved.
Definitely. But anyway, so it's just neat. Again, we talk about this every week. The people who we don't think will listen will comment.
Right.
And the people we don't even know who comment and stuff. But you mentioned just a second ago that we went on a trip. We're not going to dive into this today. But Beth and I just got back. In between the last podcast and this podcast, we took a vacation. We went to a little island called Antigua. And if you don't know where Antigua is, don't worry. I didn't know where it was either up till 2 weeks ago. And I booked the trip a year ago.
Yeah. But we did pull out the map and look.
We did finally look, and I was blown
and we're like,
away.
It's in a different time zone.
And that's what was crazy is, last year we were looking for a place to go for our 50th birthday. And a resort called Hawksbill and Antigua came up on a lot of places, kind of like hidden jewels, right?
Yeah, because we don't like massive resorts full of a lot of people.
We're not going to Sandals. No, we're not going to do that kind of stuff.
We like smaller.
And so I got to researching it, and they were doing a massive remodel last year. And so I was real hesitant. It may have been done, may have not been done by the time we went. So we ended up we picked Roatan.
Yeah.
And went there to Paya Bay, which was a great little fun vacation spot.
Very kind of like off the beaten path. Like,
Roatan is part of Honduras, but it's a little island off the coast of Honduras.
But I'm saying not the island itself, but where we stayed was all the way on the other side of the island, where it's not built up at all.
Not populated.
Hiking trails and stuff. Yeah.
But the remodel's done. And so they offered kind of some special deals, like, hey, come back. We've got it remodeled now, And you and I had a lot of points, credit card points and airline points that we could turn into free flights. And so we took advantage of that. Got the place at a discounted rate, cashed in some points for airline tickets, and went to Antigua and stayed at Hawksbill. And so I'm not going to dive into the Antigua Hawksbill stay other than to say it was wonderful.
And people will want to hear about it because it was fun.
And so we're going to actually dedicate a whole nother podcast. It's going to be a pop-up podcast, which we're going to drop in less than a week.
Yeah.
While it's still fresh in our mind. But we're going to dive deep into our trip, the nuts and bolts of it, because I think it'll be interesting for people who are thinking about vacationing to Antigua. That may want to look it up. They run across it.
And we can tell them what we like, because some people might not like
what we liked.
They may be like, ugh. But, for us.
And for us, again, I'm not exaggerating. I had no idea where this place was. I heard Caribbean, and I just knew it was some island south of us. And then about a week before we went, I was like, I just better see where this place is.
Yeah.
And so I Google mapped it. I was shocked. It is like far east, southeast of the U.S.
Yeah.
In fact, it is in another time zone.
Yeah.
For the first time that I've ever stayed, it was actually an hour ahead.
Right.
So we're in the East Coast, we're in North Carolina. So if it's 4:00 here, it's 5:00 there.
Yeah.
And so that's how much farther east it is, time zone wise. It was an hour. So, and it was, south, and it's part of the West Indies. And again, I'm stupid. I heard of the West Indies.
We won't use the S word.
I'm not a bright man. I remember vaguely learning about the West Indies with Christopher Columbus and him wanting to kind of come over, and he was searching for India.
Yeah.
And so I knew of the West Indies, but I couldn't have told you, gun to my head, one island that was associated with the West Indies. But that's what Antigua is. It's one of the islands that was... I don't want to use the word discovered because it was already there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That kind of Columbus and his crews all kind of
stumbled upon,
and they thought it was India, and it was not, and that's why they're called these chain of islands. There's about 5 of them. It's called the West Indies, but had an absolutely amazing trip, and we're going to get into that today. Hit some things relative to you and I on this trip that we're not going to include on the official
review
thing because those people don't care. They
don't want to hear our silly stories.
They want to hear about Antigua and the resort and all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure our listeners want to hear any of this nonsense we're about to unload, but
we do try to give the listeners what they want. But given that some of them don't tell us, we just have to go with what we think might be interesting.
The first thing I jotted down, I call them plane movies. Like movies that I'm probably not going to watch.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go to the theater. I'm not even know if I'm going to take the time to sit and watch them, in my own living room. But for whatever reason, like we fly American a lot. So, they have all these movies and TV shows you can watch. I just kind of go there and watch some new releases. And I've watched some really entertaining movies. I just call them plane movies. They're you get to escape for 2 hours.
Yes, exactly.
You watched a couple. I watched a couple. I'll go ahead. The 2 that I watched, the first one was the newest Venom movie. I think it's called like Venom Last Dance or something like that. It was okay.
Yeah.
It was the worst of the 3 Venom movies, and I'm a superhero guy. And I generally love most of the Marvel movies. Sony, who owns the rights to this, and their movies aren't great, but it was okay. And then I watched.
By the way, I watched it too, and I just felt like, again, it kind of goes back to this whole book theory, but it felt very disconnected. And I know it's an action movie, but there was like no character growth or development. You couldn't even really get attached to the characters. It was just kind of hard to like follow.
Yeah, it was like the
what was
first
going
two
on.
had done so well.
Yeah.
They're like, well, let's just throw another one out
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
And
outside of some of the funny things Venom would say or whatever, it didn't have the charm or the depth of like the others. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it was just kind of bland.
Mm-hmm.
But then I watched Borderlands. And Borderlands is a video game adaptation. And Borderlands is one of my favorite video games of all time. I own all of them. I've played all of them. And I could not wait till this movie came out this year. And then it got bombed. Like, it was like...
Because we were all going to go see it, but then it had terrible
the
reviews.
were like, this is the worst movie of 2024.
Yeah.
And so... I just didn't want to do it. But I happened to see it on there, and I'm like, you know what? I'm on a plane for a couple hours. Let's just watch it. It wasn't bad. Like, I actually, maybe because the bar was so low,
You just went into it thinking it was going to be
I
terrible.
told Maria I liked it better than Venom. Like, I thought it was a better, it was okay. It was entertaining for what it was. And for a Borderlands lover and myself, it was fun to see how this stuff came about on the big screen. But I enjoyed it. But that was my two. So those are not two movies I would have watched in the theaters or, on my couch. But they were. And you watched two movies.
I watched also
three movies. You watched three
I
movies.
watched and I watched The Wild Robot, which I kept calling the wrong name for a long time, but I cried a few times, so I'm sure people thought something was wrong with
And
me.
Maria and I had just watched that. You were gone with Josh somewhere.
Yeah.
And Maria and I watched The Wild Robot. And I had no interest in watching this movie. And Maria wanted to. And it was like incredible. It was so touching.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was inspiring. It just, great story, great message.
Character development.
Great
you
character
had charming
development.
characters.
Yes.
Everything was not.
Yeah.
It had, and I mean, I'd heard it, but like, I didn't think I'd like emotionally connect with it or anything, but it was very well done. And so, and I think part of it, without to give anything away, but I mean, there are aspects I think about just like relationships and loving
And
someone and sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And so it hit on a lot of those themes. And yeah, it was moving. Like I said, cried a few times.
I mean, I would put it, and it came out last year. Looking back on all the movies I saw last year, not that I've seen a lot, but enough, it would probably be in my top 5, if not top 3 movies from 2024. So, and it was nominated for an Oscar. We'll see if it wins or not.
Yeah.
It was nominated for 2 Oscars.
Maria, our film daughter, just corrected me, was nominated for 2 Oscars.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So.
And then I watched this movie, The Convert. I think, is that the right name?
Yeah.
So I knew nothing about it. Again, I'm just looking new releases. I didn't even read the description. I just started watching it. And talk about some variety in the movies I watched. It was good, but it was much darker themed and like just a sadder story. But it was interesting too.
I looked over your shoulder. It looked like it was, I may be wrong, but it looked like soldiers, Native Americans.
But it was more like about the English and their settlements and a former English soldier and some tribes that were fighting and the relationships he had with like the people and sort of his own kind of story of redemption as he's trying to work through some of his past. But it was, of course, a much more serious
and was it good?
movie. It was really good. The acting was good. The story was good. And like I said, I went into it completely blind. Had no idea.
You're quite the Renaissance woman when it comes to plain movies.
I
You
am.
watched a cartoon.
Yes.
You watched a Marvel movie.
Yes.
And you watched historical fiction.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's me. Yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what.
And we'll look at my book selection later too, and we can talk about that as well if Ross wants to sometime.
Ross doesn't even own a book. The other thing that I thought would be fun to talk about is I had a counselor tell me one time that in marriage, you're either enemies or allies, right? The goal is to be allies.
Yeah.
There's no sense in being enemies. There's no sense in fighting your partner. You should want the same thing, and so we work hard on trying to be allies.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that we are very much aligned in and allied in is we like to judge people when we fly. And so I decided, Beth, since the current administration is all about creating these new departments.
Yeah.
You and I'm gonna write to them and see if they will let you and I head up the Department of Airline Etiquette.
Yes. Oh, we'd be all over it.
DAE.
Yeah.
How's that? DAE.
Yes.
Department of Airline Etiquette.
Yeah.
Because
there are rules.
We have flown a lot the last few years. I think we've flown more since COVID than we did
Yes.
the same time period prior to COVID. I think we've flown twice as much, if not 3 times.
So much now that I'm like an expert on bag size. Like you were asking me, and I'm like, oh, this bag will 100% meet this. Like I can eye it and tell. Yeah, I mean, it's just we've just flown a lot.
We have, and a lot of it's. Some of it's missional, but a lot of it's, our kids are older.
Yeah.
And when you got younger kids, it's not fun to fly
Right.
places.
Yeah.
That's a lot to take. But now they're older, so you're
And we
taking
needed to fly
trips.
to visit Maria.
We fly
when she
to
worked
visit
in
Maria.
Florida.
We took the boys out west.
Yeah.
I fly out to help out a mission organization in Colorado quite a bit. Took the kids to New York.
Yeah.
We're just flying
Yeah.
a lot, and so I think that gives us. I don't know.
We
what I'm
have
looking for,
the
credibility.
experience and knowledge and credibility to make these assessments
to
and
make
run
these
this
judgments.
new division. Yeah.
Because I think you hear teachers talk about this with students, that since COVID, students have forgot how to be students.
Yeah.
That they're wild.
Yeah.
Right? They
Yeah.
the stuff they're doing in class, they didn't do pre-COVID.
They would have never thought to do.
And I feel like it's that way with airline travel.
Yeah.
I feel like people don't know how to fly anymore. That they just...
And I never flew in the glory days, but I think it would really be shocking for people who flew back in the day when it was a whole thing and you dressed up and you had all this it was a very refined experience.
It was very prestigious.
Yeah, yeah.
And now you got people showing up like they went shopping at Walmart right before they got on the plane. They're wearing pajama bottoms and whatever, tank tops. And that's not even part of what
we don't care what you wear. I don't care.
Just be clean.
Yeah.
Don't smell.
Especially if you're sitting beside me. Yeah.
So this is it. Beth and I sat down, and as we were just like ranting on people, the creation of the Department of Airline Etiquette, we came up with our top 6 pet peeves.
Well, we had to rant because that guy was so rude to you. He's not on our etiquette list, but like you got up and moved your bag so that he could have space, and he couldn't even lower himself to say thank you or anything. He just acted like, I don't know, you were just supposed to
he
bow
got
to
on
him
there
or
with his
something.
wife, and
he was mad.
He was mad because he couldn't find a place to put his bag. And
he's in group 9 or whatever, boarding last, and he's angry that there's no overhead bin space. Even though they'd have been announcing this flight is full, if you're in groups 8 or 9, there will be no overhead bins.
You need to check your bag. Well,
he
he did not check his bag, and it was free to check.
Yeah.
And so the carry-on I had was a pretty good sized carry-on.
Yeah.
So I decided that very first flight, I'm just going to put
it up the top.
My carry-on suitcase and my carry-on personal item up top because they were big.
I like to max the limits on our carry-ons. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he's there and huffing and puffing and can't find nothing, and I was like, because Shelly thinks I'm kind and caring and compassionate. I said, hey man, you know what? Let me just grab one of my bags.
Yeah.
So I got up, pulled my bag out, put it under the seat in front of me, which then meant I had no leg room.
Right.
Because it took up every bit of space.
Yeah.
Then he put his up there. Never even acknowledged, never said thank you,
Didn't even look
a
at
nod.
You. Yeah, not even a
like and I remember looking at you and just saying, well, you're welcome.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what set it off. And then the rest of the trip, we just railed on these people. So if you fly, this might resonate with you. And if you fly a lot and you're like, oh, that is me, you need to report yourself to the DAE. That you're going to go back to some airline etiquette, or we're going to have to
we're going to give you
your flying privileges.
Class. Yeah.
Yes. You'll put you on the no-fly list because your etiquette is terrible.
Yeah.
So we'll go through these 5. My number 1, more than even the inconsiderate guy, my number 1 biggest pet peeve, the person I hate that I wish would get banned from every flight in the entire world, is first one up guy. And it seems to be more men than women. But this is when the plane lands and they finally tell you can unbuckle, and the dude jumps up, like he's sitting in row 30.
And the
next thing you know, he's right beside you in row 12.
Yep.
And it's like, what are you doing? Like,
and let's clarify, this is not a situation where the flight attendants are like, we're running a little late, and a lot of people have tight connections, let them through, which, by the way, I've never seen anyone let anyone through that has a tight connection.
No.
These are people, you're right on time or landed early, and they are like, oh, I forgot that there's like 15, or more rows in front of me that may also need to get off the plane.
Anybody who's ever flown knows you exit front to back.
Yeah.
Just wait your dang turn.
Yeah, and it makes it smoother because actually when those people are clogging it up because they've ran up there from the back, we can't get out to get our stuff down. So it throws off. There's a system.
Gosh.
It's a system.
I'm telling you what, I hate that guy.
Yeah.
And it is guys. Like, I rarely see women do this.
Yeah.
Like, you ladies are very considerate.
I know we are.
When you're getting off
That's
the
why
plane.
we're the superior of the genders there.
But my number 2 pet peeve is with the ladies.
Oh, here we go.
There's last one, there's first one up guy, and there's last one on girl.
Yeah, that tends to be true.
That tends to be more females.
Kind of like I forgot that I had a gate at a time I needed to board the plane.
And it doesn't appear that they are, they had a connection that was tight.
Yeah.
This is, you just know that this is how they live their life.
They just walk on at the last minute, like, oh, why didn't you open the doors for me, even though you'd already started to close
And they're
them.
walking around looking for a place to put their bags, and everything is shut, and people, it's just chaotic. And it's just like, just get here on time and sit down.
Yeah.
About me on my last one.
Okay, our daughter just said that she that person or was on.
No, she wasn't really close to time.
Yeah.
So yes.
I was at the airport 30 minutes before the doors closed.
Yeah, she showed up to the airport 30 minutes before the doors closed, which is not wise because she was visiting friends in Disney. So at some point she will miss a flight based on that behavior, but I guess that'll be on her when she's sleeping on the airport floor. But still, she was that person. So we would like to say we do recognize people we love and care about may be these people.
And I have no problem banning her from flying. Like, if I had been on that flight, I probably would have been upset.
You'd have been like, sorry, I'm reporting you to this
Yes,
organization.
but since she wasn't on my flight, there ain't nothing I can do about it. But the next one I'm going to let you take, Beth, because I know this is a big pet peeve of yours.
Okay. And I said, but really seat ownership and privilege, they
Go
still
ahead.
kind of go
Yeah,
together.
put them together. Take the next two.
Because
3 and 4. What
I
are
don't
they?
know. Well, seat ownership and seat privilege, and I don't remember our distinction when we were writing these down, but a few things. I also follow a lot of travel groups. I'm in travel groups because that's how I find out about cheap flights and
I'll
stuff.
pause real quick. The ownership is the back of the seat.
Yes.
That kind of stuff. The privilege is...
Oh, I know.
Can I sit with
Yeah.
so-and-so?
Okay, yeah. So the ownership, the back of the seat or beside you, I've been on flights too where, I might be in the middle or whatever. Like, for example, Mike and I, we booked with points. We didn't even sit together on our flights. We weren't even, initially on the same rows. But you know that. But, like, I'll just have the people who are kind of, like, flopped all over me. Like, their arms are all over me. And that's one thing. I get no armrest space. But one thing that is a great debate among travelers, particularly if you have an international overnight flight, they're the people who firmly believe you should never recline your seat. And I'm like, if you're flying on an overnight flight, like to England or Europe or somewhere, you know that you're going to need to recline that seat a little bit to sleep. But I have had people that get mad and physically try to push the seat up, or they will then shove their knees into the back of the seat and keep hitting it or kicking it, or, so that's the people who just fundamentally believe that they should not have a reclined seat. And I feel kind of claustrophobic sometimes, like when I'm on these really small flights and somebody's reclined, but to me, they made the seats that recline so that you can recline them, just like they have a tray that you can put down. But,
listen, if you want to fly on an aircraft where the seats don't recline, then fly Frontier.
Yeah, because they got a whole row where you have to pay, the rows that you have to pay extra to have
go
that.
fly on one of these where you're sitting on a milk crate.
Yeah, and
right?
then you won't have to worry about that.
But if you're flying American, United, Delta, tough luck.
And
you know?
And the other thing is the privilege. So when my kids were young, I had to explain this. But now almost all the airlines, you either most of the time you pay or you got your seat way early and you select the seats. And most of the time I'm very thoughtful if I have the option. Sometimes I'm cheap and I'm like, they just put me where they put me. But if I have the option, I'm thoughtful about, I tend to be an aisle seat person. And if I can't have an aisle, a window, and of course the middle seat's my last choice. I like to be towards the front of the plane, but sometimes I'm on the very back. But anyway, most of the time, the seat that I have thoughtfully selected, and or in a lot of instances, people have paid for those seats because now they have all these seats that just based on, you get 1 inch of extra leg room. And one thing that drives me crazy is when people get on the plane and then they look to me and they're like, hey, do you want to swap seats? And it's one thing if they're like, I'm in aisle 12 and you're in aisle 14 and we're both on the aisle seat. I mean, I'm on row 12 and 14. We're both in the aisle seat. Let's swap aisle for aisle so I can sit with my person. I'm always like, fine, I don't care. But like, I'm talking about the people who get mad at me when they didn't try to book together or didn't pay, and maybe I did, and then they want me to take their middle seat on row 40 so that they can have my aisle seat on row 12.
So they can sit beside their spouse or a
and
friend.
and they act like you're a terrible person. And I'm like, well, what about my friend? I want a friend after what I want to do, which I do. Games when you find out they're changing their policy for boarding, but that's the thing I like about that, the not having assigned seats. You just get on and that's your seats.
Well, see, that's where I experienced the most privileged person.
Well, like that time, I think, remember I told you I had somebody, they had their bag there. I was getting on Southwest, and he said something like, oh, you look okay, so you can sit here or something. It was like he had a bag there, like he was reserving the seat until the right person that he approved of would sit beside him. It's kind of crazy.
It's because you're a hottie, Beth.
No, oh, please, no.
Come on, I would have done the same thing for you.
Stop it. Oh, my God.
I mean, I can't blame the
Okay,
guy.
this
I
is
would
going
like to look at
downhill.
people, too, because there's people who, when they're boarding, in my mind, I am a very observant person.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at every person on that plane, and I'm trying to decide who's the terrorist, who's, running from the law.
Yeah.
Who's the sky captain
Yeah.
or whatever, security, like in my mind. And then I always go back to Lost, and I'm like, all right, if we were to crash, who of these people would probably die? Who would be resourceful?
Yeah.
Like all this is going on in my brain. So I'm judging people from the second I see them. Sometimes it even starts when we're sitting out front before they even open boarding, like when I'm looking around at a gate. So, but we were on Southwest one time. I feel like it was just me for some reason. I don't know where I was going. And I had found my aisle seat, and there was a guy next to me who I didn't know. And right at the very end, this lady gets on with her kid that was probably about 10 or 11. And she's walking up and down. There's no two seats together. So then she's asked, she don't ask. She actually demands. She says, I'm going to need somebody to change seats so my daughter and I can sit together. That's exactly how she said it. I'm going to need this. And everybody just kind of looked around. And she said, I'm serious. I need somebody to move so my daughter and I can sit together. I'm not having her sit somewhere without me. And everybody just sat there and stared. And I turned to that dude. I said, does she not know how Southwest works?
Yes.
And I said it loud enough because I'm passive aggressive like that. And she's like, I'm not moving. We are not going anywhere until one of you gives up your seats. And she started to cause a little scene, and the stewardess was like, you got to
sit down.
And finally, some poor schmuck was like, I'll do it. And I'm like,
take one for the team.
I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like, let her get her butt kicked off the plane. Like, this is what feeds it. This privilege to fly. I'm with you, man. Just
pay to board early, or you have to, I set an alarm on my phone because exactly 24 hours before it opens. So I will set an alarm on my phone for 5 minutes before 24 hours before check-in so that I can have the app open. And then when the time hits, I can be refreshing and can hit check-in and then get the best boarding group that I can.
It's because your to-do list.
Exactly.
Because
I had it on my to-do list to set the alarm and to do that.
It all comes
It
full
saves
circle.
the day. Yep.
And the last one, number 5, on biggest pet peeves. Beth, well, I'll go ahead and tell you, this is not a pet peeve of hers because I flagged her for this.
Yes, I know what you're going to say, and I don't know why this bothers you if somebody's being respectful and quiet.
people who board the plane, sit down, and as everyone's still getting on, makes a phone call. And just sits there and talks and laughs.
I didn't talk and laugh.
Yes,
I
you
talked
did.
like,
You were just
no,
like,
I did not.
And I'm like,
I had to do.
who is this woman like talking on the phone? Like, I'm not saying it's a library, but I mean, you're on the plane.
Someone had an urgent work issue.
Nobody
I can
had
guarantee
it
that I was not.
not.
Ha ha. It was, and so I just quietly took the call. I
not
told
quiet.
them. I said, "We're taxiing." I mean, like we were like sitting outside. This is when we had landed and we were sitting because it was one of those times when we were back.
Yet.
I did not do it when we. I know
on the plane.
Oh. This was when we were sitting there. No, I remember.
In Charlotte, I think. And we were getting ready to fly to Antigua, and you pull out your phone and just start calling friends.
No, I did not. That is not at all what happened. And also, I spoke very quietly. I kept it very short. And I could tell you were like doing your judgy eye thing. But like, I was not hurting anyone. That like, off.
Like a week or two ago.
Oh, yeah.
We decided to book an excursion. And so it's Sunday. I'm at Tantrum Con. It's that Sunday. And I get a text from an out-of-the-country number. And all it says is, we would like to confirm your appointment for such and such a date.
Right.
So I get these kind of texts all the time.
Oh, I do too. Like, hi, or do you want a job, or let's do it for lunch.
Are we still meeting for dinner?
Yeah.
Like whatever.
And usually you just delete and block and report spam or whatever.
Well, yeah. Well, a lot of times now I'll delete and report spam, but before I do that, I do comment. And what I say is this. I say, nice try, Diddy. Maria. She's not down here. Sorry, I was gonna see if she thought that was appropriate. But that is the thing people are saying. Like if you go online and you look at anything, especially if you go and say Instagram and an ad pops up, go to the comments. The first 200 comments are always "nice try, Diddy," and the point is Sean Puffy Cones, P Diddy. He's in prison right now, jail. That you're trying to get one over on somebody, right?
Yes.
And so I replied back, nice try, Diddy. And then I blocked delete. Well, then another number pops up and it just says, excuse me? And then they say, this is Antigua Adventure trying to confirm your excursion. I was like, oh, sorry. I was like, you didn't tell me who you were. Like, I thought that you were just a spammer. And so we clarify and they book it. So now we fast forward to our excursion day. We took an amazing excursion, which you'll hear about on the Antigua special podcast. But it was really cool because they actually came and picked us up in a boat on our beach.
Yeah, so you walked out.
You just walked off the beach and got in a boat and they took you on the excursion. Yeah. So I get on the boat. There's already two girls there.
My younger friends that read the same book series.
That's right, yeah. One is from France, one was from the UK.
England. Yeah.
And so we were the first four. They go around and they pick up about a dozen other people, and then we have our 8-hour excursion. So we get on the boat, and we're getting ready to take off, and there's the captain.
Yeah, and two guys that work
from
Antigua, all of them.
All of them Antiguans, and is that the right word?
I don't know, but they have those cool accents, And
he says, hey, man, I need to ask you something. And I was like, all right. And he's like, I've been dying to ask you this. Is it okay if I ask you? And I said, yeah, that's fine. I had no idea what he meant. Yeah. He said, what was up with the nice try, Diddy? And it just happened to be the guy that I had texted. And we laughed, and then all the guys started laughing. He was like, I showed all my boys. I said, look at what this guy just wrote. And I was like, that's a stupid American for you, And I was like...
And he's like, but no, it told me we're going to have fun on this trip because somebody has a sense of humor.
That's right. He's like, you know how to have fun. And I said, in my defense, you didn't tell me who you were. You
Yes.
just sent me this random text.
Yes.
And so we got a big laugh out of it. And then for the rest of the trip, there was all these Diddy jokes.
Yes.
And so
Yeah, which I hope now, though, you've learned a life lesson, just like maybe Maria will, about getting to the airport too late, about maybe just not engaging, because that's really what you should do when they do that. You just block and delete. You don't need to do, it did make for a good story, but we can not engage with the people.
nice try.
Nice try, Diddy. I knew you were going to say that.
The other fun thing that happened to me was we're eating where we ate.
Oh, yeah.
The restaurant was wide open.
Yeah.
Like it's outdoor.
No walls.
There's no walls.
There's
You're in
just
Antigua.
a ceiling or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to describe. I mean, it looks nice, and they have tablecloths and tables, so you're undercover,
Yeah,
but
and half
no
the
walls.
half the tables and chairs are outdoors.
Outside,
the other half's
outside.
kind of covered.
Yeah.
Because it's 82 degrees.
Yeah.
It's tropical. It's beautiful.
beautiful.
And so we're there one morning for breakfast, and they have a breakfast buffet. And I think we had went and got our food, and we were sitting down. And a couple at a table kind of near us went and got some juice. And, orange and grapefruit, whatever, 2 different kinds of juices, and put it down. And then they went to go get their food. And as they were getting their food, the way your back was to them, but I could kind of see their table. 2 birds rolled up. 1 bird on each glass. And they just started drinking that juice out of the 2 glasses. Drank. And then they finally just flew away.
They had their fill.
And then about that time, this couple comes back. So while they were drinking, I remember I said to you, I said, look, I got a moral dilemma. And you're like, what? And I said, look. And you looked, and there was the birds. I said, do we tell these people or not? Is it really my business? Like,
And
it's kind of like, if you're going to get food and leave it out in a tropical island, you're kind of asking
you're
for
not.
bugs and birds and stuff to come down and eat. But it's like, I don't know. I had this moral dilemma of what to do.
And I said, I would want to know if someone had seen that happen, because, I love birds, but I don't want to drink out of the same cup as a bird. And I think you should say something. Plus, I think you might have been like, what would Shelley want the nice me to do? Or the good person Shelley thinks I am. What would Shelley want me to do?
What could I do that would make Shelley happy?
Yeah, which one of these would show that
but
nice side?
I want to point out what you just said, because that is what you said to me that morning. You were like, I would want to know, so I think you should go tell them.
You were the one that saw it.
But it didn't matter. I made you aware.
But I didn't even know for sure which table it was.
I could have pointed it. Not one time did you say, you know what? Show me who it is. I'll go tell them.
But you wanted to be the bigger person.
No. Well, so I decided I would. So these people came back, and as soon as they sat down, I got up and went over to their table and just said, hey, look, I don't mean to interrupt your breakfast. Y'all may not care. But while y'all were gone, there was birds drinking out of your juice.
Yes.
And they got the biggest kick out of that. And they were like, thank you. No way are we going to drink this. And they pushed it to the side. And they were very grateful and thought it was funny. And they were very appreciative of me. And I came back and sat down. And you were like, well, how'd it go? And I just said, Beth, not all heroes wear capes. And
yeah, that was the line of the day, that not all heroes wear capes. And I was like, we have gone like from 0 to 100 there in like your opinion of yourself. Like, not only were you living up to the sweet person that Shelley thinks you can be, but you were a hero that day.
yeah, I was a hero.
Yeah, you potentially saved 2 lives.
Saved them from the bird flu.
Yes, there you go. You saved 2 lives. Yes, we'll go with that.
I do what I can.
Yes, yeah, you do. Yes.
So those are just a couple stories and some flying type things that won't be brought up on the Antigua podcast. But if you're interested, in the next few days, we'll pop one on, and you can listen to our adventure in Antigua and Hawksbill Resort.
Should we bring up my fear about my near-death experience?
If you think we got time, I mean, you're the one that has to go to book
I have to go in
club.
a minute, so super quick. So I love to snorkel. Favorite thing ever. We'll talk about it more in detail. But I was out snorkeling on our last full day there, and you said I'd been out, what, like way far for
solid
like an
hour.
hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
And most of the time when you go with snorkel companies and stuff, you do 30 minutes. That's a really long time to be snorkeling, but since I could do it right off the beach. And as soon as I was getting up out of the water, I was like, my lip feels really bad, my bottom lip. And I had the phone in a case because I'd been trying to do like some pictures of some fish, and my lip was swollen to like 3 or 4 times its size. It was huge, and it just, well, you're looking, I don't know.
I don't know if it was that big.
It was big, but it was only my bottom lip, and it was painful and tight. So I came up to you.
You look like you had some lip injections.
Yeah, he said I looked like I'd had lots of Botox. But anyway, Botox gone wrong. Like I would have been one of those like Pinterest
You're looking
fails
like
for
Madonna
Botox.
now or
yeah.
something.
But and I was just like, oh my gosh. So we start Googling, and it could be anything from like being in the saltwater and sun. It could be like sunburn. It could be an allergic reaction to food. It could be all these things. And so we tried to treat it and do some things. And then I woke up on the day that we were supposed to come home, and it was still swollen. And I started to have to take Benadryl. I was taking 2 Benadryl every 4 hours and just praying that I could get home. But I have a tendency to have anxiety. And not all the time, but sometimes. Years ago, I had panic attacks. And, you know, for people who've had panic attacks, sometimes you have like a sense of impending doom. You'll hear people that say they think that they're having a heart attack. One time I felt like the side of my face went numb. I mean, just odd things happen when your body's in a state of panic. So I started to feel like my throat was closing up some. And this happened multiple times throughout the day on our trip home. And I could not distinguish if it was a potential allergic reaction, because it would seem to get some better with the Benadryl and then it would do it again, or if it was a panic attack. But for those who don't know, panic attacks can make you feel like your throat is closing. And it is a physical, it's not just that you feel like it. I think from what I read, like you do, like your throat kind of...
Am I allowed to read what I read?
No, because Mike thinks he's funny. Again, we weren't sitting together on the plane, and I thought that I was going to die on the flight home.
So she's sending me this stuff about, I think I'm going to die. I'm writing out my last will and testament. Honest to God. That's
I was not right. I already have a will. I was writing out to everybody that I love them if I died.
And detailing step by step what was happening.
Well, I wrote to you exactly when I had taken the Benadryl and what dosage I had taken and the times that I had taken them, and I airdropped them to him because, of course, you can't like text on the plane. But I turned around and I said, "Turn on your airdrop," and so I was airdropping him these memos, and I could tell. And then I was getting angry at Mike because I could tell that he was being dismissive, thinking that it was a panic attack. And to this day, I did talk to my doctor. We don't know for sure what it is. I'm going to have some tests and stuff done that caused it, because it could be a lot of different things. But I just say all that to say, I don't know. Sometimes when I hear about people's trips and stuff, you do only hear the highlights. And maybe sometimes it's good for people to know that we got a little crazy thrown in there too. I mean, you know,
You almost died.
Well, in my head,
In your head, you almost died.
I did. And I will tell you, I was like, what do I want to say to my kids and family? And, what, you know, like, I don't know. It was scary. And panic attacks are no fun. And so I also, in addition to talking to my doctor, talked to my therapist, and we're going to work on some things that I might do in the event of panic, you know, some breathing and different techniques and stuff for me to practice. But yeah, so that was quite the eventful end.
And I don't feel like I was dismissive.
You weren't dismissive.
I feel like I was trying to be rational.
Yes, but
I just kept saying, I'm not sure it's that.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I don't think it's that.
Yes.
I think it could be this.
But
let's just don't jump to conclusions.
even now, it's not as bad, but even now, days later, I'm still swollen, and I still have, it's painful and chapped lips
I think
and stuff.
it
Yeah.
like,
Oh, I know. No,
minimize you.
you didn't. But I mean, at the time when I'm like, am I having a panic attack
Please
or
tell
am I
Shelly
dying?
I was loving and caring.
Shelly, I just need you to know he was loving and caring. He was supportive. And he'd even said, maybe they have an urgent care at the airport, which is things I never thought I would have to think about. But I did, thank goodness, when we landed, I have a friend, and we'll call her Megan. And this was after hours for me to get in touch with the doctor. So I messaged her just about, she gave me some tips about taking a Zyrtec along, just to confirm that I was doing the right thing, taking the amount of medicine.
Megan's not a doctor. She works at Target. So I don't know why you were even asking her. She's
true.
A cashier at Target.
No, she is a doctor. She knew what she was doing. So anyway, that was a little bit of a not so funny, but a serious, real life, eventful end. Was it still an amazing vacation? Yes. Would I still go back? Absolutely. But I don't know. Sometimes you just have those things that happen that shake you up a little bit, or that are unexpected, or, don't go the way you planned for them to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we survived.
We did.
One last thing I want to update. We talked about our poll question. I want to remind you guys of the poll question again, which will begin in a couple of days on our Facebook. Is the poll question earlier in the day? Do you follow a to-do list? Last week, our poll question had to do with analysis paralysis. Paralysis, and if last week's podcast, and the question was, do you have analysis paralysis? Yes, no, or I can't decide.
Right.
So pretty much, if you say I can't decide, you're
in the yes camp.
Yes. Here's the percentages. We got quite a few votes. 72% said yes, they have analysis paralysis.
Wow.
28% said no, they did not have it.
I will say that one listener thought that maybe she had missed the poll question, that she messaged to confirm. Like, she's like, where is it? I can't find it.
I'm like, dang, I'm out of the country. Give me a break. Gosh.
Because Mike was delinquent. Not all heroes wear capes, but I can't get I'm a hero by day, saving lives from birds drinking from cups, so I can't get the
I was busy.
poll question out.
I was busy saving people from the bird flu and Beth from an allergic
whatever
reaction.
It was that I was having. Yeah.
Allergic reaction to sanity.
Yeah. Well, I'll take it. No one's ever said I'm completely all sane. So, yeah.
All right, so be on the lookout for our standalone pop-up podcast on Antigua. There's also going to be 2 more standalone podcasts. One, we mentioned the Enneagram last week, and we had a good friend start messaging us about that they also had read The Road Back to You and started kind of a little online discussion. And we just decided we're going to make a separate podcast about that, because that's something that Beth and I have read a lot about. I've gone to some seminars, done some things, some retreats, and so I'm by no means an expert on the Enneagram, but
we just have
feel
our
like
experience.
We have enough knowledge that we can share some stuff. So along with the standalone Antigua, we're going to be doing a standalone Enneagram podcast, and another request, Beth, and this is up to you if you want to do this or not. We talked about it earlier on this podcast. You using miles, right? Credit card miles to get our free flights and stuff and all that kind of thing. You are the queen of maximizing these miles.
Oh, well, thank you. There are people a lot better than me at it.
I know, but you've gotten really good at it. I have had somebody request that we do a class or a podcast on how to do the trick with the miles.
Okay.
And so we can maybe even have one of those, and you can explain to everybody
what I did and how I started and where I am now.
And the big thing is to remember is you don't
acquire credit card debt. You're going to give that disclaimer. Yeah, this is all about, I pay off my credit card every month.
Yeah.
This is not about like putting your mortgage on your credit card or something.
Just buying a bunch of stuff so you can get miles.
Yeah,
and then you're in,
because then you've canceled out the benefit of it.
So you're putting stuff on your card that you would normally be paying for anyway.
Yes.
But there's a whole trick to that.
Yes.
And it's maximizing. So
thinking about which cards
you're going to use.
So we've had that request too.
So if you want to do that, Beth, we can do that. But
well, I am happy to comply, and I can share some groups that I've followed and looked at and where I've learned, because there are people who they consider it a hobby, but it's almost like a part-time job for them. I am not to that level. I'm not like some people label their different cards with stickers so they can maximize points based on purchases. So there's a lot you can get in deep. You can go deep. Is this the way I can also be a hero? The hero
or you're going to bankrupt people. This is a fine line.
Dave Ramsey's going to come after me. He's going to be like, "What are you doing, woman?
Yes.
You're ruining it all these people."
Yeah, some people are still paying off their Radio Shack credit card from 1998.
Yes.
You don't need to be opening up anymore.
Yes,
if that's
exactly.
you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway. Well, anyway, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Thanks, Beth, for being vulnerable again.
Yeah.
And open and honest. And as always.
Oh, you're welcome, y'all. I'll be really extra vulnerable.
This is a fun podcast where we've just been married a long time. We have 3 kids that are grown. We're both career people. We're both involved in our church and ministries. And this is just a podcast about that intersection. And I think that I really do think it's striking a chord with a lot of folks that fall into a few of those categories, if not all 4. But definitely 2 or 3 of them. And so we appreciate the feedback. We like the comments, the questions, the replies, whether it's on social media or our website, heyyou'stillthere.com, whatever. Thank you. Thanks for listening, and thanks for coming along for the ride, and keep sharing it. If you think this is fun and lighthearted and easy to listen to, please pass it along to some friends. We think we're having a good time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you next time.
See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.